Hey, everybody, and welcome to this episode 237 of the Thought Team Navigating Now virtual roundtable series. I am Anthony Ewing, as always, co-founder, CEO here at Thought Team, and so pumped for, I think, the sixth time to have our most perennial Navigating Now guest at the table, Tim Jones. He is an author, a speaker, a builder of community, and again, most importantly, he's a perennial friend of mine. Tim,
absolutely
good to have you back here at the table.
Happy 4th of July Eve, everyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for joining us here this afternoon. We go live every Thursday afternoon at 3:00, and we bring leaders and leadership topics that matter most to our folks on YouTube and Facebook. But we want to particularly thank those folks that stop by on our LinkedIn feed. Our LinkedIn following has grown over the course of the last 12 to 18 months, and we're just so thrilled to be bringing leaders like Tim to the table. Tim and I were just taking a look back down memory lane, and I think it was 2018, 7 years ago almost, that Tim and I were reconnected, and we sat in front of a camera for the first time and talked a little bit about life and leadership. And we were commenting on how a lot of those principles just haven't changed. And today, Tim's going to be helping us almost remind ourselves of those evergreen leadership principles that we should be keeping in mind, but maybe at a time that is more important than ever. The title of today's episode is Leading with Clarity When the Ground Keeps Shifting. And Tim, I don't know about you, but I just feel the ground shifting maybe more today than it ever has before. But before we dig in, how are you doing, brother? Good to see you.
I feel good. It's good to see you. Happy New Year. This is my first time seeing you this year, but I feel great. And I'm still optimistic. I still have hope despite the ground doing what it does. It moves. It shifts.
How has the ground shifted for you personally over the last year since we last connected? What's new with Tim?
Well, I have two teenagers in my house, a 14 and a 13-year-old, and it requires a little bit more of my attention. Pieces of my brain that I didn't know existed have to be tapped and used. But ultimately, I mean, I'm just in love. I try to be love. I proposed this year to a beautiful woman, and I'll get married next March. So I have all the feels right now. So I hope you feel the feels coming from me.
Yeah, I was commenting earlier, Tim. I mean, we've really been connecting for the last maybe hour or less.
Yeah.
And I feel like I'm in the presence of the most grounded version of Tim Jones that I've ever been around. And it's it feels different, but it feels really good. Tell us maybe a little bit about like that feeling of being grounded. Would you describe it that way, this season of your life?
I think that's right. I think when you live a few decades on this earth, you realize what matters, what requires your full attention, what doesn't require your attention. How many people you can just unfollow with the touch of an index finger, and your life and your day will be much better. But I don't major in the minors anymore. I don't like to be overwhelmed. I try my best to surrender any panic, any fear, any worry, any anxiety, any stress. I try my best to release that first thing, my first 20 minutes of each day. And we've talked about that in the past 5 sessions that I've been with you. So
I don't major in any minors. First of all, if you all have consumed an episode with Tim Jones, you know that there are these nuggets, these one-liners that if you're not listening closely, they will absolutely slip through the cracks. That's one I want to unpack. But you've got me thinking about we should create an unfollow count, right? Like, I think like what you just said was really remarkable, that a part of you feeling grounded in the season of your life is maybe an acceptance or an understanding of how many people you can unfollow, whether that's like physically on Instagram or maybe even just like, guide your attention away from in life and be even happier.
Yeah.
Is that something you've experienced, the unfollow count?
Well, I've always been somebody that I'm always focused on what I'm reading, what I'm watching, and who I'm listening to. And so that helps me not, all due respect to Soulja Boy, he's not somebody that I follow. He doesn't show up in my feed because I don't want to be fed what's coming out of his mouth. And so there are some rooms, there are some shows that I don't absorb because I don't want that energy. I don't want the feels that they give. So in order for me to stay grounded, in order for me to have an eternal perspective and not an earthly perspective, I got to find those people.
Yeah.
And we just talked about a few people or personalities or energies that we just kind of ascribe to, and we like what they give off. And we take it in.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe lesson number one here is, pay attention to kind of, as the world around us changes, and as the title of the episode says, as the ground continues to shift, just pay attention to your circles of context. Pay attention to those influences that maybe you've been tapped into for quite some time, that maybe having an influence on your ability to stay grounded. So the unfollow count maybe is that first nugget from today's episode. I want to ask you about this. Like, I don't major in any minors anymore.
Okay.
Tell me about, like, what is that philosophy for you? And I'd love to maybe think about how that applies to us as business leaders as well, too. Those of us who maybe wear a ton of hats or feel like we've got to wear a ton of hats.
Yeah, I think for me, just sometimes you think as a younger leader that everything requires a response, that every person requires your time and your energy or your rebuttal. And, it's okay to let people win. It's okay to shrink yourself. It's okay to take the next elevator or the next cart going up, so that you don't have to drift outside of your values, of your core beliefs, of your wiring. Because here's the thing, like, the ground never stops moving. The ground never stops shifting. Our values keep us grounded despite the ground shifting. What you have over there on the wall, the dirt, the grind, the why keeps us from being knocked over as the ground evolves, really. And that's what it's about. How do you evolve as the ground evolves? And you do that by holding true to who you are, those values, that wiring, that discontent, making sure that any discontent that you have a system for managing it, and a process for managing it.
That's one of the themes that I know has it's been a through line of all of our conversations over the years, is our ability as leaders to not have the answers. And maybe that's a term that is so widely, it's maybe a little bit more widely used these days. So I'll be even more specific. To not have the rebuttal, to not have the immediate response. And I will tell you, in real life, that is one of the most difficult things as a leader. You feel like you're almost bestowed or unable to have to make the decisions in real time. That's a very traditional definition of leadership, or even like wartime leaders are those that can make decisions in real time and act with decisiveness. But I would agree that I think the exercise there is finding those opportunities when you don't have the answer, to pause and allow some of that air to come into the space, or to offer a little bit of vulnerability in those moments when everybody might be looking at you for the answer.
Yeah, I mean, at the core of it, the foundation of it is discernment, right? And that's discernment is, do I go all in? Do I touch this? Do I let them win? Or do I rely on the data, my information, my expertise, and have the proper response? And so it's all based in this foundation or this principle that we don't necessarily talk about in leadership, but this idea of serving, like knowing when to jump in, or knowing when maybe it's time to recalibrate. And here's the thing, like, we don't get what we deserve, we get what we discern, particularly in leadership, right? We feel like, I've been working, I've been staying up late, coming in early. Well, there's nothing that you deserve as a result of doing that. Now, what do you discern as a result of coming in early? Like, is there a return on the investment? Are people following your lead and adopting those values and behaviors? And so oftentimes we think just because we're present or we're in charge that things are supposed to happen our way, but there's some discernment that has to kick in to help our decision making, that will ultimately help our energy for the work.
I love that. Discernment over deserving. That's maybe the second kind of nugget that I'm taking from this conversation that we're having with Tim Jones, It's about leading with clarity when the ground underneath us seems to constantly being shifting. And I'll maybe transition to more specifically in this topic, Tim. We work with clients every day who are fixated right now on the rate at which things are changing, whether that's within their organizations or in the world around them. More specifically, the topic of the day has been around technology, AI, and the implications that it may have within our organizations. And we have a lot of clients right now that are in a little bit of a wait and see stance. And I know I can count on you for a little bit more of a controversial take on this idea of kind of pausing and waiting to see. So what are your conversations like with leaders today who maybe feel a little bit paralyzed with how quickly things are shifting?
Well, I will say this is that you can't keep up. And because you can't keep up, you need to be really good at being a human being and understanding who's on the team, charting a course for the team that has a humanistic, civil, humanity-centered approach. Yeah. And I came into the year talking a lot about civility. And for the next 4 years at least, civility at the highest level of leadership is on pause. And so as leaders, we have to make sure that we're exhibiting a level of civility to keep our folks from getting filled with anxiety, filled with panic as they read and watch the news or watch their feed. And so your ability to just be civil, your ability to just be patient, to be kind, strong with the truth, gentle with people. I've said that numerous times on here because you can't keep up with the data. AI is lapped us
already.
We're bound. And so major in the humanity piece of it, because the technology stuff, you'll always be on the late freight. You'll always be behind on it. But you can get ahead and stabilize the humanity side of things, the civility side, the humility side of things.
Yeah. It's so interesting, at let's call it the doorstep of the pandemic. I know we've had a couple conversations. As an organization, our focus was on, how we can leverage technology to connect with others and the role that technology would play in a more connected world. Here we are just 5 years later, and technology, we're beyond the pandemic, but technology has proliferated so much that I think the pendulum is swinging in a completely different direction, to where the differentiator is like, how human can you be in a world where technology can run the world itself if it really wanted to? And that's something that we're super excited about at Thought Team. We've always called ourselves a human-centered experience design firm. And we feel that as leaders within organizations, we've got to find those opportunities to either be more human in front of our people or create more human experiences for our people. Develop those, what we call universal human skills: self-awareness, other orientation, communication effectiveness. This is not vibe coding or engineering or all of the hard skills that got us to this point. I actually think the margins now are going to be found in the human skills.
Oh, absolutely. And I think people have got it twisted, right? The technology is supposed to inform, not absorb our ability to discern, not absorb our ability to lead, but it's supposed to inform. And so the technology is great. It should be used. You should consult it. You should, practice analytics and data analytics and have somebody on the team that specializes in it. But it has to be informing your business, not absorbing it. And sometimes we get caught up in that. And then that's when we have the issues with the humans that we lead.
Yeah, I love that. Let's round things out, Tim. And I'm curious, how, and I maybe just want to open this up because I just want to tap into your expertise and the conversations that you're having out there in the world. What are some of the conversations that you're having today that maybe you weren't like a year or two ago?
Conversations today
I mean, you talked about civility as maybe the center point, but I'm thinking even beyond that. Like, are there leadership topics or conversations that you're having today? Even conversations amongst you and I were talking on the way here about just men particularly needing outlets and avenues to be vulnerable and to share kind of how they're struggling with each other. What are some of the newer conversations that you're having or you're seeing in the marketplace?
I think just change, dealing with change or
Yeah.
changing as a leader. The brain, right? One of the top two, one of the most important organs in our body, processes action or speech, particularly by a leader, as a life or death threat, depending on how it's communicated. And so how you say things matter. Your philosophy for leadership, your philosophy for conflict resolution matters to the individual that you lead, because the most important organ in their body identifies action or speech that is just like derogatory, threatening. It processes it as a life or death threat, and you're gonna have a problem on your hands. They're either gonna fight, flight, or leave, or fight, flight, or freeze. And so change, leaders not knowing that they can say things a different way. There's a better way to articulate what they're trying to communicate. And I think some folks just think, I am who I am. My Myers-Briggs says I'm this. My DISC personality assessment says I'm this. It is what it is. This is who I am. This is how I lead. And we got to lead differently. For whatever reason, 2020 put this check engine light on all of our foreheads that identified us as people in need of intensive care, right? Whether it was the pandemic, whether it was the loss of loved ones, whether it was the globe being flipped upside down, we realized that everyone was placed in intensive care and they need a different type of leader alongside them. We talked a lot about this the last time I was with you. And so I think leaders just understanding that they can still change, they can still develop despite being in the C-suite, despite being partner, you can still empty you of you so that you can lead better. And empty you of you, that's humility, right?
Yeah.
Because if you're full of yourself, it's going to be hard to know and feel and sense emotional intelligence, what's going on with your team and how to lead them effectively.
Now, I want to ask you about this book that you wrote. How many years ago? Leave No Potential on the Table?
Yeah, we came out in 2021. Yeah, November of 2021.
Tell me a little bit about that book. Has been out in the world for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
I know that book has found its way into different communities, particularly the youth. And I'm curious, like, what are you seeing come of the Leave No Potential kind of like movement and folks that have read that book or maybe stepped into certain aspects of that book now 5 years later, 4 years later?
Yeah, so it's a book that helps people stop suppressing who they are and who they want to be, right? We all have these gifts, skills, abilities, and talents, but for whatever reason, we suppress them. The book is an exercise in reverse suppression. And so just being able to get this in the hands of high schoolers so that they don't have to toil with who they are and their identity like I had to do, that they could get like an inside scoop on how to manage who they are, where they want to be versus what they're seeing right now. And so I just think a lot of the young people that have read the book, they read it once and they read it again in multiple settings. It's not that long. It's about 64 pages or so. But it's something that they can use as a resource. It has shelf life. It's in their backpack like other resources and tools. And so ultimately, I've been trying to help people not just navigate where they're going, but narrate where they're going, right? Because words are violent boomerangs. They inform more than what we do than we know. What we're saying is why we are where we are. Not our boss, not our education. It's how you're narrating your journey. So that book has just been really transformational to the folks that I've got a chance to hear back from, and I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, it's incredible. Well, I want to congratulate you on that. The evolving leadership that you've brought to your different circles and communities, but more importantly, as we connected today, we were both acknowledging how both of our respective worlds have actually gotten a lot smaller in the last year, and we were kind of sharing how we've experienced our worlds get a lot smaller. And I think both of us would agree, like, I am so grateful for a little bit of the unfollow count on my ticker. I'm so grateful for the fact that I could spend the rest of my life pouring into this first degree community that I've built over the course of the last 25 years and be so happy and so fulfilled. And to be at a point in life where you're able to acknowledge that and realize that, and then say, hey, like, my work is right in front of me. There's nothing else that I need to go out and do. There's no one else that I need to follow. And I just appreciate you being a part of that, and a constant reminder of just how much we have in our first degree network. So thank you, Tim.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything that we need is right here. It's with us. There's not a room that we need to be in to get something that we don't have. It's right in front of us. It's in our phone, in our text thread.
Yep.
And we're not missing out on anything.
It's in the text thread, not IG.
Not IG. Not IG.
Well, Tim, I'm so glad that you are in my text thread. I'm glad that you're in my world, and I'm glad you're a big part of the Thoughtium community. As we've grown, we just know that we've had such a big fan in you, as much as we are a fan of you as well, too. So thank you so much for joining, brother. I appreciate you.
Keep up the great work. The new space looks great. If you haven't been here, come to Chicago.
We got lunch. That's for sure.
That's right. That's right.
All right. We want to thank everybody for joining us just the day before a long weekend. We hope that you had a chance to stop by and grab a nugget or two from Tim Jones. If you want to see this episode or any previous episodes, thoughttium.com/live. Thank you for joining episode 237. And we look forward to seeing you next Thursday at 3:00 Central.